All right, so let's jump into making money online. I feel like that's something a lot of people are curious about. We've got this podcast episode here. It breaks down 5 proven methods. And the cool thing is, it's not just theory. The host actually tried some of this stuff themselves, and they've interviewed a bunch of people who are making serious bank doing this. So think of this deep dive as the roadmap we all wish we had when we first started out.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about this source is it doesn't just throw a bunch of random ideas out there. It gives real-world examples, like actual people who are having success with each of these, which kind of gives you a better picture of what's possible.
Exactly. And first up, they highlight newsletters. I know, you might be thinking, newsletters, isn't that kind of old school?
Mm-hmm.
But trust me on this one, they're making a huge comeback, like it's a serious business model.
It is interesting how newsletters have gone from this casual hobby to actually a real income source. For a lot of creators, it really shows how things are changing when it comes to content creation and how to make money from it.
Yeah. It's not just about sharing your thoughts with friends and family anymore. It's about building a dedicated audience.
Yeah.
Giving them something valuable that they'll actually pay for.
One thing that's better about newsletters than social media is that you actually own it. With social media, you're kind of at the whim of the algorithm, and you know the platform can change things whenever they want.
True. It's like renting an apartment versus owning a house, right?
Yeah.
You've got way more freedom to do what you want with a newsletter. Speaking of which, they talk about Substack in this episode. Have you used that at all?
I have. What's great about Substack is how easy it is to use. They designed it specifically for creators. You don't need to be some tech genius to use it. Even if you don't know anything about coding, you can figure it out. Plus, it's totally free to get started, so you don't have to risk any money to try it out.
Yeah, that's huge. Especially if you're just starting out. Now, they had a really good example in the episode, Morning Brew. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a daily newsletter. And it's gotten super popular. Apparently, they're making bank.
Oh, yeah. Morning Brew is a great example. It shows what you can do when you focus on a specific topic, have engaging content, and build a strong community. They started small, but now they have over 4 million subscribers. And back in 2021, they made something like $50 million.
Wait, $50 million? Okay, now you've got my attention. But what I found interesting is that they're not just relying on one way to make money. They've got sponsors, affiliate links, and premium subscriptions.
Exactly. That's super important for anyone who wants to build a business online. You don't want to rely on just one thing, because what if that goes away? You want multiple streams of income. They also have a really smart referral program, so their readers spread the word, and they grow organically.
Word of mouth is so powerful. When people actually enjoy something, they tell their friends. And that means so much more than some random ad.
It all comes down to trust. Building trust with your audience and having a good reputation, especially online. There's so much competition out there. You really need to stand out.
Okay, so newsletters. They give you a direct connection with your audience. It's relatively easy to get started. And there's definitely potential to make money, as long as you do it right. So in terms of difficulty, how hard would you say it is to get started with a newsletter?
I'd say it's like a 1 out of 5 to get started. Platforms like Substack make it super easy. But the real challenge is making quality content that your audience actually wants to read, and then getting people to actually subscribe. That's where it gets tougher.
So the initial hurdle isn't too high. But to really make it work, you need to be consistent and have a plan.
Exactly. You've got to be in it for the long haul, keep your audience engaged, and create content that they're willing to pay for.
Got it. So newsletters, a good option. But it takes work. Ready to move on. This next one is all about being creative. A little entrepreneurial.
All right. Let's talk about digital products, things you create once, and then you can sell them over and over again.
Okay. You've got my attention. Tell me more about these digital products. What are we talking about here?
Well, it could be a lot of things. Ebooks, templates, courses, designs, plugins. The possibilities are pretty endless. Basically anything that can be delivered online.
So it's about taking what you know, or your skills, or even your creative stuff, and turning it into something people will buy.
Exactly. In this podcast episode, they talk about this guy on Twitter. His name is Easel. He makes a ton of money selling Notion templates.
Notion templates. I know what Notion is.
Yep.
I'm not really sure what templates are.
Right. So Notion is this productivity app. People use it to organize their thoughts, manage projects, all kinds of stuff. Templates are basically pre-made layouts for Notion that help people get things done faster. And Easel saw that people needed certain types of templates, so he made them. And now he's making a killing. In just 9 months, he's made over $200,000 selling these templates.
Wow, that's amazing. What I like about this is You don't need a bunch of fancy equipment or a warehouse full of stuff.
Yeah.
You can create and sell these products from anywhere.
Absolutely. All you need is an internet connection. This is perfect for people who want to work remotely or travel the world while they work.
So you could be on a beach in Bali, sipping on a drink, and your digital products are making you money in the background. Sounds pretty good to me. But let's be real. How hard is it to actually make and sell these digital products?
You know, it's actually not that hard to get started. That's the beauty of digital products. You don't need a store. You don't need to keep track of inventory. I'd give it a 1 out of 5 for difficulty. But the key is to create something that people actually want, something that solves a problem for them. That's the challenge.
So the technical part isn't that hard. It's coming up with the right product.
Exactly. You need to do your research, figure out what people need, and get creative.
Okay, so you've made this amazing product. What about keeping it up to date? Is that a lot of work?
The cool thing is, once you've made the product, there's not a lot of maintenance, especially compared to something like a service business, where you're always trading your time for money. I'd say it's a 1 out of 5 for maintenance, too. Of course, you might need to update it sometimes or answer customer questions, but overall, it's pretty low effort.
So you put in the work up front, and then it can keep making you money for a long time. I like the sound of that. All right, next strategy. This one's for the video lovers out there.
Okay, let's get into video editing.
Video is everywhere these days. Every business, every brand, every influencer is making videos, and someone has to edit all that footage.
You're absolutely right, and that's why video editors are in such high demand. It can be a great way to make money, especially if you like working with visuals. The podcast mentioned that freelance video editors can charge over $100 for just a 10-minute video, and that's just the beginning. As you get better and build your portfolio, you can charge even more.
$100 for 10 minutes of work. Not bad at all. But what if I've never edited a video in my life? Can I still do this?
Of course. There are so many resources available online. You can learn everything you need to know. Platforms like Skillshare have tons of courses, from the basics to advanced techniques.
So even if you're a total beginner, you can learn and start making money as a video editor.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, video editing takes time.
Yeah, it does. It's a service. So you're trading your time for money. You have to factor in the time it takes to learn, and then the time it takes to actually edit the videos. The podcast gave it a 2 out of 5 for the learning curve, which means it's not that hard to learn the basics. But finding clients, managing projects, and keeping up with the latest trends, that's a 3 out of 5 for maintenance.
So it's not passive income like digital products, but you can definitely make a good living if you're willing to put in the work.
Exactly.
Okay, 3 down, 2 to go. This next one might sound a little scary. It's about building your own tech empire.
All right, let's demystify the world of SaaS businesses. Software as a service.
SaaS, I've heard the term, but to be honest, it sounds way too technical for me.
It's actually not as complicated as it sounds. Basically, you create software, and people pay to use it online, usually through a subscription, like Netflix or Spotify. You pay a monthly fee to access their service.
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of selling a physical product, you're selling access to software that you've created. But what about the technical part? Do I need to be a coding whiz to do this?
Not necessarily. There are all these no-code platforms now, so you can build and launch software without knowing how to code.
No coding. Now, that's something I can get behind. But are there any real-world examples of this? People who have actually built successful SaaS businesses?
Definitely. The podcast talks about Nomad List and Remote OK.
Nomad List. Yeah, I've heard of that. It's for digital nomads, right? What about Remote OK?
Nomad List helps people find the best places to live and work remotely. And Remote OK is a job board specifically for remote jobs. The guy who created both of these platforms makes $2.7 million per year, and he has 0 employees.
Did you say 0 employees? And $2.7 million in revenue. That's the dream. But I'm guessing it takes a lot of work to get a SaaS business off the ground.
It does. There's definitely a learning curve. You need to figure out the market, choose the right platform, design the software, and then market it effectively. The podcast gave it a 4 out of 5 on the difficulty scale, so it's not easy.
It sounds a bit like climbing a mountain. Challenging, but with a great view from the top.
Exactly. But once you've built it, it's pretty low maintenance, especially compared to constantly trading your time for money.
So you're putting in a lot of work up front, and then you can potentially reap the rewards for years to come.
That's the beauty of it.
All right, Sas, I think I'm starting to get it. What's the last strategy?
Last but not least, we have online courses.
Online courses, I've taken a bunch of those, but I never thought about creating one myself.
It's a great way to make money. You package your knowledge and skills into a product, and people pay to learn from you. You become a digital teacher.
I like that. But how do you actually get people to sign up for your course? Do you have to build your own website and everything?
Nope. There are platforms like Skillshare that make it super easy to create and sell courses. They handle all the technical stuff like payments and student enrollment, so you can focus on making great content. They even have an algorithm that promotes your courses, so you can get students even if you don't have an audience yet.
So they do all the hard work, and you just focus on teaching.
Exactly.
Okay, so how hard is it to create an online course?
It's actually not too bad. Especially with platforms like Skillshare, I'd say it's like a 2 out of 5 for the creation part. You need to plan the course, record the videos, and edit everything. But once it's up and running, it's pretty low maintenance, like a 1 out of 5.
So it's another potential passive income stream. You make
Yeah.
the course once, and it can keep making you money for a long time. All right, so we've got newsletters, digital products, video editing, SaaS businesses, and online courses. 5 very different ways to make money online. But before we dive into each one, I'm curious, what are some of the common threads that connect all of these?
That's a great question. What's interesting is, even though they're all different, they all require a certain mindset. You need to be willing to put in the work, and you need to focus on providing value to your audience.
So it's not just about choosing the right method, it's about having the right mindset.
Exactly. You need to think like an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
a problem solver, someone who creates value for others.
And that's key if you want to succeed online.
Absolutely. And another thing they talked about in the podcast is the importance of really understanding your audience. It's not about making something you think is cool. It's about making something that people actually need, something that solves a problem for them or adds value to their lives.
That's so important. I know I've been guilty of that. Getting caught up in my own ideas
Yeah.
and forgetting to ask, would anyone actually want this?
Yeah. It happens to the best of us, especially when you're really passionate about something. But that's why market research is so important. It's all about understanding your ideal customer. Who are they? What are their interests? What are their pain points?
It's like detective work, but for business ideas.
Exactly. You're gathering clues,
Yeah.
analyzing the evidence, and then using that information to create something that people actually want.
Okay, I'm starting to see how important that is. But to be honest, building a business online can feel really intimidating. There's just so much to think about. It's easy to get overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And that's why I like that this podcast doesn't just focus on the technical stuff. They also talk about the mindset, the psychological part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, the mindset is huge. You can have all the tools and knowledge in the world. But if you're not in the right headspace, it's easy to give up.
Exactly. One of the biggest mindset shifts they talk about is letting go of the expectation of overnight success. Building a business online takes time. It takes effort. And you have to be willing to experiment, learn from your mistakes, and adapt as you go. It's so true. It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison trap. You see people on social media who seem like they're crushing it, but we're only seeing the highlight reel.
Right. We're not seeing the behind the scenes, the struggles, the failures, the long hours. Everyone's journey is different. Comparing yourself to others can really mess with your head.
Tell me about it. I always think, I should be further along by now. But I have to remind myself that building a business is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to focus on your own journey. Celebrate your wins and trust the process. Set realistic goals. Break them down into smaller steps and keep taking action, even if you don't see results right away.
It's like planting a seed. You have to water it, give it sunlight, and be patient.
Perfect analogy. Your business needs those things too. Consistent effort, planning, and patience.
And I think it's important to talk about the emotional side of things too. Building a business can be an emotional roller coaster, especially if you're doing it on your own.
Absolutely. There will be highs and lows. Some days you're super motivated, and other days you just want to quit.
That's why it's so important to have a support system. People you can talk to who understand what you're going through.
Like a cheering squad. To celebrate the wins with you and pick you up when you're feeling down.
Exactly. And don't forget about self-care. Taking breaks, doing things you enjoy. That's not selfish, that's essential.
You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly. The podcast also talks about finding a balance between hustling and flowing. Working hard, but also resting.
Yeah, I think it's easy to fall into the trap, feeling like you need to be working all the time, but that just leads to burnout.
Exactly. You need to be strategic. Prioritize the most important tasks and give yourself time to rest and recharge.
It's like running a marathon. You can't sprint the whole way.
Right. You need to pace yourself
Hmm.
and plan for breaks.
So it's about working smart, not just hard.
Exactly. And that leads to another important point they made. Embrace the learning process. Building a business is a journey. You're constantly learning and growing. You don't have to have all the answers right away.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
Exactly. It's about having a growth mindset, believing that you can learn and improve.
So instead of seeing setbacks as failures, we should see them as opportunities to learn.
Exactly. It's all about reframing your perspective.
Okay, so we've talked about being open to learning. But what about feedback? How do we get good feedback? And how do we use it to improve?
First, you have to be open to receiving feedback, both good and bad. It's a gift, an opportunity to learn and grow.
It's like looking in a mirror. Sometimes you see things you don't like.
That's true. But you have to remember, feedback is not a personal attack. It's about your work, not you as a person.
Okay, so you've gotten the feedback. What do you do with it?
You analyze it, figure out what the key takeaways are, and then make a plan to improve. Maybe you need to tweak your product or your marketing message, or maybe you need to change your whole approach.
So it's not just about listening to feedback. It's about taking action.
Exactly, and that feedback can come from anywhere. Your customers, your colleagues, your mentors, even your competitors.
Competitors.
Yeah. Instead of seeing them as enemies, see them as sources of inspiration. What are they doing well? What can you learn from them?
It's about collaboration over competition.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point, building relationships, networking with people in your industry.
Ugh, networking. That word makes me cringe.
I know it can be a little scary, but it's all about being authentic, being generous, and genuinely wanting to connect with people.
So it's not about collecting business cards. It's about building real relationships.
Exactly. Be interested in others. Give value before you ask for anything, and engage in conversations and places where your ideal clients hang out.
It's about building relationships, not just transactions.
Exactly. Those relationships can lead to amazing things. Collaborations, partnerships, mentorships, friendships.
It's like building a tribe.
Exactly. And that sense of community can be so powerful, especially online, when it's easy to feel isolated.
It's like having a safety net.
And on that note, the podcast also talked about setting boundaries.
Boundaries. Yeah, those are tough. Especially online. I feel like you have to be available all the time.
I know. But boundaries are so important. It's not about being unapproachable. It's about protecting your time and energy.
So you can actually show up fully in both your work and your life.
Exactly. It's about setting clear guidelines for when you're working and when you're not, and communicating those to your clients and colleagues.
It's like putting a fence around your garden.
I love that analogy. Your boundaries are your fence. They protect your precious time and energy.
So find what works for you and stick to it.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another important mindset shift. Embrace imperfection.
Imperfection. But everything online seems so perfect.
I know, right? But the truth is, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm a total perfectionist. And it holds me back sometimes.
I get it, but the podcast encourages us to embrace the messiness, to allow ourselves to make mistakes, and to remember that done is better than perfect.
So it's about progress over perfection.
Exactly. Give yourself permission to be human. Make mistakes, learn from them, and keep going.
And that journey is rarely a straight line, right? There are going to be twists and turns and challenges along the way.
Absolutely. And those challenges can either break us or make us stronger.
It's all about how we choose to approach them.
Exactly. And that's why resilience is so important, being able to bounce back from setbacks, learn from your mistakes, and keep going, even when it's tough.
It's like building mental muscles.
You got it. You have to train those muscles by facing challenges head on and developing coping mechanisms.
So it's not about avoiding challenges. It's about learning how to deal with them.
Exactly. Resilience is what keeps you going when you feel like giving up.
It's like the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right. But it's not just about surviving. It's about thriving.
Yeah.
Using those challenges to grow and transform.
And that transformation often involves stepping outside of our comfort zones, right?
Absolutely. You have to challenge your limiting beliefs and be open to new ways of doing things.
It's about being a beginner again.
Exactly. Be humble, be curious, be willing to learn.
And that's how we stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
The online world is constantly changing. We have to be willing to adapt.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
It's an adventure full of opportunities to learn and grow.
It is. It's a chance to be creative, to develop your skills, and to build something you're truly passionate about.
It's like a giant playground.
Exactly.
Full of possibilities.
Okay. I'm feeling really inspired now. But before we move on, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about celebrating our wins. I think it's so easy to forget to do that. We're always so focused on the next goal.
I know. It's so important to celebrate our wins, no
Well,
matter how small.
It's not about being arrogant. It's about acknowledging our progress.
Exactly. It boosts our confidence.
Yeah.
And reinforces positive behaviors.
It's like giving ourselves a pat on the back.
Exactly. And those celebrations don't have to be big. It could be something as simple as taking a break or treating yourself to something nice.
It's about acknowledging our efforts and appreciating how far we've come.
And cultivating a sense of gratitude.
Exactly. Gratitude is so powerful. It helps us through the tough times.
So it's not just about reaching the destination. It's about enjoying the journey.
Exactly.
And celebrating the wins along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about one more thing. They mentioned it in the podcast. It's super important. Taking action. It's easy to get stuck in the planning phase. You do all this research, you tweak your ideas. But at some point, you have to actually do something.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Analysis paralysis. It's a real thing. I spend so much time planning that I never actually start.
It happens to a lot of people. We want everything to be perfect before we put ourselves out there. But the truth is, there's no such thing as perfect.
Right. There's always going to be something else to learn or another tweak to make.
Exactly. So you just have to start.
Even if it's scary.
Exactly. Jump in and figure it out as you go.
Like jumping into the deep end of the pool.
Perfect analogy.
So we've talked about these 5 different strategies.
Newsletters, digital products, video editing, SaaS businesses, online courses.
They're all different, but they all require action.
Exactly. You can't just think about it. You have to actually do it.
And the cool thing is, the online world is always changing.
So there are always new opportunities.
It's exciting.
It is.
So if you're feeling inspired, pick a strategy and start.
Start small. Experiment. Learn as you go.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us. We hope you learned something.
Yeah.
And that you're feeling inspired to take action.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep thriving.